Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today I'm going to be reacting to how left-right partisanship starts a civil war in Spain between two wars, 1936, part 2 of 3 by Time Ghost History. If you want to check out my previous reactions to other Time Ghost History episodes, remember the playlist card is going to be at the top. Just click on it and be able to access them. If you want to check out the original video as well as Time Ghost History's YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
I suppose you could call the Spanish Civil War World War II's practice run. The mass killings, industrial warfare, and the blurring of lines between civilians and combatants that we will see in the years 1939 to 1945 will already happen from 1936 to 1939 on the Iberian Peninsula. But how has Spain, a country which has mostly kept itself out of international affairs, found itself in this position? Why has it become such a powder keg? As we will soon see, the pre-war Spanish Republic is rife with violence and strife. In its short life, it will be continually rocked by revolution, uprisings, and coups. Its defeat is never inevitable, but it will not be a surprise when it descends into civil war. Welcome.
Is he going to be talking about the Second Republic of Spain, or is it the third one? I can't remember. But yeah, I think I know which time period is he going to be discussing about. Yeah.
Welcome to Between Two Wars, a chronological summary of the interwar years, covering all facets of life, the uncertainty, hedonism, and euphoria, and ultimately humanity's descent into the darkness of the Second World War. I'm Indy Nidell. Since 1874, Spain was a constitutional monarchy under the royal house of Bourbon. Despite being relatively liberal, though, the political system is widely undemocratic. Ruling parties have monopolized political power and corruption is rife. By 1923, the system has become so discredited that even King Alfonso XIII backs a military coup, an authoritarian dictatorship under Miguel Primo de Rivera. At first, it is actually pretty popular, but soon runs into difficulties.
That's what that's essentially how all revolutions begin. It's all cheery, happy kind of feelings, and then you have to get down to business, and that's when the honeymoon period is over, and then you realize what you have done. I'm not saying that the previous government was good. I'm not saying that they were perfect, but this is what happens when you change your government wholeheartedly like this. Yeah.
Economic and social problems are widespread, and Primo begins to alienate and lose his powerful allies. He is forced to resign in January 1930.
Where have you ever heard of a dictator resigning? This is the first time. Usually dictators die, still in power, or, they continue being in power till the bitter end, Yeah. So this is surprising. Resigning, okay.
And in April 1931, local elections are held, which basically become a referendum on the monarchical system, right? Republican and socialist parties dominate the results, and celebrations break out nationwide. Alfonso flees the country, although he does not technically abdicate.
Yeah, he miscalculated. He chose one side over the other, and now that's backfired on him. Yes, he hasn't abdicated really as the king of Spain, but any form of political power he once held in the country is now evaporated, essentially. Now the people themselves are going to decide what kind of government and leadership do they want. And yeah, let's see if it succeeds.
And a provisional government is forged. The Second Spanish Republic is born. General elections are held in June, and a coalition of socialist and Republican parties, chiefly the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party and the Radical Republican Party, are swept to power. They immediately set about passing new legislation to kickstart Spain's path into the modern age. The crowning moment comes in December, when the Spanish Parliament, the Cortes, approves a new constitution. Within it, is all the reformist zeal of the new regime. Spain is defined as a republic of workers of all categories and as firmly democratic and secular. Women are given the right to vote, and a presidency is established with influential but strictly limited powers. In an era where authoritarian ideas seem to be gaining ground at an alarming pace, there is much to be celebrated about the birth of Spanish democracy. But already the country is being squeezed from both sides of the political spectrum. On the one hand, the Catholic Church and the forces of conservatism. On the other, the communists and anarchists of the far left. Now, the regime hasn't exactly tried to make peace with the church. The Cortes has passed legislation which introduces divorce and civil marriage, removes religious symbols from public buildings, and enforces taxation on church finances. Even more harshly, they ban all teaching by religious orders, which is actually not the smartest move in any case, considering the government does not really have the budget to fund the resulting teaching shortfall. But
I kind of like what this current government is trying to do. Maybe they're going a bit too fast, you know. But I do like what they're trying to institute, you know, with marriages and divorces and, women being allowed to vote, less of a religious dogma over the government, taking off religious symbols over government institutions and stuff like that. It is trying to become a secular state. I think maybe more consultation was required to make the religious factions of the country understand that, state and religion can no longer be as one as it used to be. We are now trying to separate these two, organizations, so that we have far more responsibility to the general public and not just to the religious aspect of our country. Yeah, I think more consultation was needed. The upending of the religious schools, I don't think that was a good idea. Like I said before, maybe it should have just taken in time, in process. Don't just rush it through and destroy all the institutions that the Catholic Church have created. Maybe appropriate some of those schools and transform them into government schools, if that's possible. But yeah, maybe they should have just taken it a bit more slowly.
The church is seriously powerful. The Asociación Católica de Propagandistas, the ACNP, owns the biggest network of radio and newspapers in the country, and they pump out anti-Republican propaganda and denounce all these attacks against Catholic Spain. They are joined by the conservative rural oligarchy. They are angry at legislation pushed through by the socialists in government. New laws reduce working hours, introduce mandatory overtime pay, and safeguard the right to strike. This is totally unacceptable to the elites used to the suddenly former social order. And for similar reasons, as well as the radical rhetoric of the regime in general, the aristocracy and the industrial classes also have no desire to see the republic succeed.
There's a lot of enemies. If it's not religion, it's people who control the means of production in the country, who are now also rising up and saying that we don't like this government because, they're giving more emphasis and more importance on the workers that work in their factories or on their farmlands and other places. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here. However, I think maybe the people on the ground, those who are seeing the benefits of this new government, they might, continue to support this new republic. But yeah, the other forces that be in Spain, they really just don't like what's happening. And yeah, let's continue. Let's see what happens next.
On the other side of Spanish politics, much of the radical left see little difference between the old regime and the new one. Agricultural workers are particularly dissatisfied with the pace of reform as the government struggles to penetrate the distant and traditional corners of Spain. With directions from the Soviet Union, communists work to generate support against the republic. Okay, their influence is actually pretty limited. far more powerful is the Confederación Nacional del Trabajo, CNT. This is a confederation of trade unions who subscribe to anarcho-syndicalism. In very basic terms, that is a doctrine that believes that trade unions should be at the forefront of the fight against capitalism to achieve a classless, anarchist society. From the get-go, the CNT works to mobilize the masses through grassroots organizing. And many of them are not afraid of using violence, as they unleash an all-out revolutionary offensive. Armed robberies, bombings, and killings are common. Deadly clashes between the civil guard and striking workers happen all over. Now, the former still use the same tactics that they always used in monarchist Spain. Most infamous among them, the ley de fugas, the extrajudicial killing of prisoners on the false claim that they are trying to escape. Things get especially brutal in the countryside. In the final days of 1931, 4 civil guards shoot and kill a laborer during what was until then a peaceful demonstration in the southwest Badajoz province. A furious crowd pile onto the guardsmen, beating them all to death with stones, well, and with knives as well. So not just beating, but beating and knifing them to death.
Okay.
Thought I'd say that. Anyhow, violence continues in 1932. In January in Logroño, civil guards open fire on protesting factory workers. 11 protesters are killed. One of them is a pregnant woman and another a 4-year-old child. That same month, a CNT-organized insurrection is staged in Catalonia. It is put down pretty quickly, but it is violent, and more such things are on the horizon. Okay, although the right are notably less violent at this point, they staged their own power grab some months later in August. Led by former head of the Civil Guard, General Sanjurjo, a group of military leaders attempt to reverse the leftist course that they see the government following. But it is poorly organized, and not nearly enough rebel troops even turn up. The rising in Madrid is particularly desperate, not lasting longer than 4 hours. Sanjurjo is kind of successful in Sevilla, though. With no shots fired, he takes control of the city for around 24 hours. But when he sees everywhere else has failed, he steps down. He is sent to...
Good choice. If you see that nothing is going your way, don't force the issue. Just surrender. Yeah.
...to death, but this is commuted to life in prison. All in all, though, only around 9 people are killed. Not wanting to be outdone by the right, the CNT carry out another insurrection in January 1933.
Basically, this is all about posturing. Who can do it better? Doesn't matter how many people die, who can do it better? Who can do it far more extravagant in terms of displaying to the people that their side is the winning side? Hey.
Like the Sanjurjo coup, it is swiftly defeated. But unlike the coup, it is very violent. In Casas Viejas, rebels fortify themselves in a house and begin shooting at the police. The police set the house ablaze with the rebels and their families still inside. The escaping survivors of that are executed on the spot, with a final death toll of 19 insurgents and 3 policemen. After witnessing all these failed power grabs, many on the right decide to adopt a more legal approach in their opposition. This policy becomes known as accidentalism, the belief that the form of the regime itself, be it liberal, corrupt, authoritarian, doesn't really matter. What does matter is what can be achieved within the framework as it stands. Led by José María Gil Robles, accidentalists formed the Confederación Española de Derechas Autónomas, CEDA, in February 1933, and begin challenging the system from within. It is a broad church made up of Catholic organizations, monarchists, pretty much anyone who might not support the current regime.
Yeah, all of them are united through hate, and that will dissipate very fast, Right now, they have a common enemy. However, when that common enemy has been dislodged, they're going to continue their infighting with one another. So, yeah.
While professing to play the democratic game, though, Gil Robles' movement reveals clear admiration for fascist movements across Europe. It has a uniformed and violent youth wing, holds rallies, and regularly emphasizes loyalty to the fatherland in classic Hitler-style rhetoric. Not everyone on the anti-Republican right follows an accidentalist strategy, though. Opposing them are the catastrophists who believe in the complete overthrow of the Republican system.
Catastrophists. Hey.
The three main groups here are the Alfonsists, the Carlists, and the Phalangists.
Alphonsists. Are they supporting the former, exiled king to return? Yeah, I think so. Alphonsists. Yeah, definitely, it's them. Okay, the other ones I don't know, but that one at the top there, you can clearly see that those guys support a monarchy to return to Spain. Yeah. Okay.
The Alfonsists seek the restoration of King Alfonso with a militaristic and staunchly Catholic dictatorship. The Carlists, they're pretty similar, but instead see an alternative branch of the House of Bourbon as the true heirs to the Spanish throne. Both the Alfonsists and Carlists are reactionary and devoutly Catholic. Like the Seda, both movements also have significant fascist traits. But it is the Phalangists who are most clearly fascist. In 1933, Phalangists are an assortment of fascist groups which by 1934 will have united under Jose Antonio Primo de Rivera, the eldest son of the former dictator, and modeled on Benito Mussolini's fascist ideals, right? For now, these catastrophists play a marginal role in Spanish politics, but they will come to be crucial players in just a few years. So, already in its first 2 years, the Spanish Republic is facing severe and serious challenges.
Yeah, challenges from the left, challenges from the right, people of all different organizations trying to pull Spain into their, corner, and they're literally just tearing the country apart. The state itself, the current government, they are trying to keep it together, but it's just very difficult. And, everybody is resorting to violence. Everybody is resorting to killing and destroying. So, hey, Spain is in a topsy-turvy, chaotic situation right now.
Social tensions are rising ever more as the economic situation worsens. The political alliance of Republicans and Socialists is falling apart. They are growing increasingly distrustful of one another as the radicals seem to pull rightward and the Socialist Workers' Party pull leftward. The government collapses in the fall of 1933 and new elections are held in November. Now, while the Republican coalition is falling apart, the right-wing movement under Gil Robles Seda has remained unified. This works significantly in their favor. See, the Spanish electoral system very much favors strong coalitions over fragmented partnerships, and the Seda wins the highest number of votes. They are short of an overall majority, and the Radical Party are still able to form a government with the blessing of the president. But it is a coalition with much more of a right-wing bent, excluding the Socialists and relying on the parliamentary support of the Seda. If the new government wasn't wary enough about the instability of the Republic, they most certainly are when, on the opening day of session of the Cortes, December 8th, the CNT staged their third insurrection. Again, it is put down, but not without significant difficulty and bloodshed. Spain seems to be slipping into a state of quasi-civil war. Now, one of the biggest reasons for the failures of the Spanish left-wing movement so far, in both parliament and revolution, is that they often hate each other as much as they hate capitalism. But many are beginning to realize that this cannot go on and start searching for new ways to beat back the rising reactionary tide. The most significant thinker here is Joaquin Maurin, who advocates a united front of workers' alliances. It is a popular idea among many leftists and is soon put to the test. On October 6, 1934, it all starts when 3 Seda politicians are given government positions. In response, various left-wing groups collectively stage strikes and protests up and down the whole country. The government declares a state of war and manages to control the poorly organized revolutions in most regions. But things are not so easy in the province of Asturias, where tens of thousands of socialist, anarchist, and communist miners collectively established a full-blown revolutionary commune. The desperate government turns to the much-admired General Francisco Franco for help.
You know what that means. Hey.
Franco's answer to the revolution is the use of the Spanish Air Force and the crack troops from the Spanish colonies. The fighting is savage. Rail lines and rebel strongholds are bombed, and government forces carry out summary executions en masse on captured revolutionaries. There are also stories of miners' families being raped and mutilated by marauding government troops, and after 2 weeks, these brutal tactics eventually quelled the rebellion. Revolutionaries have been responsible for atrocities themselves, though. Around 40 class enemies were murdered in these 2 weeks, most of them priests trying to escape from raided churches. Some 900 revolutionaries and about 250 government forces were killed across Spain in those 2 weeks.
There was a time when killing priests and destroying churches was considered to be, something extremely heinous and immoral and very wrong, and considering that Spain is such a devout, majority Catholic country, it's very surprising that, some of these groups went to such lengths and destroyed such buildings and also killed people who you would consider as the leader of their particular communities, the priests and what have you, all those people in the church system, if I can say that. So yeah, Spain is definitely changing. Things are not the holy cows that they were before. People's lives are now only worthy behind the idealism that they follow. Yeah.
The uprising in Asturias and the rest of Spain has failed, but it will have far-reaching effects. For one, the battle lines for future conflict have been drawn. On one side, a revolutionary front of workers committed to all-out war. On the other, forces of order systematically repressing their enemies with industrial terror. Another effect is that, like the right-wing accidentalists, many on the left decide to retreat from revolutionary violence, right? The ideal of left unity remains, but is taking on a parliamentary form. This is encouraged by the Soviet Union, who are now advocating popular fronts, which even include liberals and social democrats, to counter the fascist surge. Such a popular front is established in January 1936 as a broad coalition in the election the following month. They win, but by a hair-thin majority of only 150,000 votes. Furious, many on the right now abandon their legalist strategy and take up with the catastrophists. The SEDA gives up on parliamentary politics, and many of its members give up on the movement and flock to the Falange. Spain is now entering its most violent phase so far. The spring sees high-profile assassinations from both the right and the left. Paramilitaries loyal to Falangism, Carlism, or Alfonsism sow terror on the Spanish streets. The CNT are now staging strikes to an unprecedented degree, and street battles are a part of daily life. Even in the Cortes itself, things are getting out of hand with confrontational exchanges and promises of violence between rival politicians. The military is also becoming an increasing threat. With rumors of a coup flying, the government now moved to counter any hostile threat. Many officers are demoted or transferred to the far reaches of Spain. Franco is sent to the Canary Islands. He will spend most of his time there learning English and playing golf.
Yeah, this is just kind of like denying the inevitable that, the military are going to probably take over. Yeah, I mean, it's ripe for another coup d'etat, and I think definitely the military are going to be that spearhead that changes the government again, and then comes out with the third republic of Spain. Yeah.
Government fears aren't actually misplaced, though. The rumors are true. Top officers and generals have been planning a coup. But has the crumbling Popular Front regime acted quickly enough to save itself? In its short life of just 5 years, the Second Spanish Republic has seen violence and ideological strife on an unprecedented scale. Uprisings, violent strikes, assassinations, street fights have become a daily part of life. Thus far, governments have held on thanks to the disorganization of the opposition on one side and the shaky loyalty of the military on the other. But both these uncertain defenses are melting away. A military coup is in the works, delayed only by the cold feet of certain officers and generals. When it arrives, it will be a bloody, brutal battle waged on the backs of the Spanish civilian population. Political activists on both sides and world leaders will use it as a proxy for the general struggle of the 1930s. It will inspire literature, art, and polarize public opinion, dividing the world ever further as we spiral into global catastrophe. If you would like to learn more about civil strife between fascists, socialists, and pretty much every political color there is, then check out our video on 1930s Austria right here. It'll come up in a minute. Our patron of the week is Mario Slavic. It is because of our Patreon supporters that we can continue making quality historical content such as this. So be like Mario and join us at patreon.com or timegoes.tv. And when you think of Spain in the mid-1930s, do not forget the old proverb, presto hay un bastón para dar al perro. Someone who wants to be cruel will find things to be cruel about. Salud. That was interesting. Salud. See you next time.
Okay, guys, that's it with how left-right partisanship starts a civil war in Spain between two wars, 1936, part 2 of 3 by Time Ghost History. Yes, this all began with the king, Alfonso. He made a political calculation. He thought he was doing the right thing by supporting a dictator, overthrowing the current government, thus, creating this new situation springing up where the dictator himself also resigned, which is quite surprising, really. I don't think I've heard of a dictator resigning, but yes, he resigned. A new dispensation was being brought to the fore. Political parties now could participate in the functioning of the government. The Second Spanish Republic had begun, and now that people have a taste of power, have a taste of freedom, have a taste of what could be possible, they are doing whatever means necessary to make sure that their ideology wins the day, no matter the cost. And many of the factions across Spain are, entrenching themselves, having no form of compromise whatsoever. They are hell-bent on making sure that Spain is the image of their dreams, and they're prepared to do whatever means necessary to achieve those goals. And Spain is literally being pulled apart by different people with different ideologies, and even this, when there is a state, in power, when there's a government in power, and they're trying to keep everything together, keep Spain together, like the forces that are pulling it apart are just so strong and so numerous. And everybody is resorting to violence, everybody is resorting to intimidation tactics, and just political killings and massacres of different people. And it is a very chaotic scene happening in Spain, but most of Europe has also been going through the same kind of chaotic transitions. Many of them that have had like a monarchist government structure, now changing over into a far more circular kind of state, where they're separating their religion from the state, or where they're emphasizing on more of a socialist ideal, or maybe a fascist ideal. All of these things that are just swerving around in the states, in the individual European states. It's something that has been happening, in almost all of Europe, and now it's also just affected Spain. And yeah, it's a chaotic mess. It's a chaotic mess. And guys, I guess that's it. That's it for today with Time Ghost History. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as Time Ghost History's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos, and I will see you guys next week, Tuesday. Okay? Bye-bye.